There we go. Today is April 23rd, 2025. It's 9 a.m. It's the Rice Creek Watershed Board of Managers regular meeting. We are currently meeting in the Mountains View City Hall Council chambers. We thank them again for their hosting us. Record reflect that Marcy Wynant is one of our managers from Rice Managers is absent with prior notice. Otherwise, there are 4 of us here today, along with staff. And is there any change to the agenda?
Staff have no proposed amendments.
Anyone else have a proposed amendment? If not, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
As set.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, Mr. Chair, I think it's my time to jump in here and request a motion for approval of the minutes for the April 7, 2025 workshop and the April 9, 2025 regular meeting.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nothing. I think that takes us up to the open mic, doesn't that?
That is correct.
All right. So I recognize that we've got at least 3 people here probably with regard to the first or second items on our agenda. You can either speak now in the open mic portion, or if you want to follow our presentation on each one of those, you could speak at that time.
I'd rather follow the presentation.
Okay.
So,
That'd be fine. Thank you.
thank you.
Does the same apply?
Yes.
Very good. So at that point then, I presume there's no one else who wants to speak at open mic. We don't have anyone on the phone.
Nope.
Let's proceed then to our first item, the Anoka County Ditch 102232 History and Conditions Memo. Do you have anything
Yes.
before time?
Yes, President Bradley, Board of Managers, this item is on page 18 of your packet. This is really a prelude to the second agenda item about lowering the culvert on the main trunk of ACD 102232 at West Pine Street. Its background, the board in the October 23rd meeting previously considered the Wetland Conservation Act application and the potential lowering of the culvert under those wetland impacts. It was not approved at that time, and I recall the reasons being concern about the overall system condition and some of the landowner concerns that were raised, and also the concerns about the wetland credit cost and the use of the district credits for this purpose. Later on the board's March 12th meeting, you did guide staff to proceed to resubmit an application. Again, the Wetland Conservation Act rules have changed since that time. So this ACD 102232 conditions report provides the board information to consider ahead of that item 2 on the agenda where you actually consider an action. And Tom's here to address the memo and the conditions report, as well as Mr. Otterness and Mr. Cole.
Very good. Tom, I guess you're up.
Thank you, Mr. President and Nick. Yes, the condition report is reflective of the concerns that have been raised by landowners throughout this process, and both Chris and I, who developed the memo, believe that it addresses the known deficient areas. And for each of those, maybe Chris, could you bring that map up for the sections?
Sure. It's gonna take a minute. I gotta see if I can share here.
The areas that we've noted in the memo reflect deficiencies due to maintenance needs. And the plan for the Board of Managers and the public, that we're intending to correct those before any lowering of the culvert itself under Pine Street. And I've spoke with the City of Columbus yesterday, and their concerns about lowering the culvert before they do their re-graveling of West Pine Street. We worked out a don't want to say deal, but we've come to agreement that they're not as concerned about that. They're more concerned with, getting it lowered than they are with having to re-gravel that spot or regrade it. So there's no time crunch for getting the culvert lowered like immediately because of city concerns. So we're going, road authority concerns, so we're going to, the intention is to correct the priority items, immediate priority items, as listed in the report, before any lowering of the culvert. This includes, bear with me as I try to page through this packet. Location 3 on the map, which is Carl Street to Lilac. We've already approached a contractor to do that work, to excavate the ditch, both downstream of the Air Park culvert and upstream of the Air Park culvert, prior to any work being done. The same with the area adjacent to the prison. And we're working with contractor to do the section of the main trunk just downstream, so south of Main Street. Remove the cattails and accumulated organics, again, prior to lowering the culvert. The other culverts that are mentioned in the report are seasonal, forgive me, the definitions of immediate seasonal priority items. I mean, it's more, the downstream culvert is passing, the culvert directly downstream of, I think it's a section that is not of. The section immediately downstream of Pine Street is passes water, it's just a little high. So it affects more of the 100-year flood flow versus base flow, so it's not as big of an immediate priority. Would not need to be done before the culvert's lowered. So that's the plan for that. And all the seasonal priority items that are listed in the report are planned to be done as time allows this year. It includes the mowing and spraying, which now that we have 2 of our staff are trained and certified to actually spray for woody vegetation, we will start doing that on a more regular basis to control the trees and hopefully discourage beavers and such. Time will tell. Chris, do you have anything to add, Chris?
Mr. President, Board, I'll just note one more item that, and it's the last item that's on our list of seasonal priority items to complete. This is a culvert that is just to the west of 4th Avenue on Branch 4. It'd be location 12 on the map. Again, just to the east of 4th Avenue, there's a driveway culvert there. That driveway culvert meets our criteria that we have for drainage, managed system from a drainage perspective, but we have noted that there is, on a 100-year rainfall event, a couple feet of water elevation that occurs on either side of that driveway. So there is an opportunity there to potentially lower 100-year flood elevations by making that culvert larger. So that one kind of goes beyond the scope of drainage, and it's more of a flood management kind of effort. So there again, we're recommending that a sizing review be completed there to see if there's the potential to lower flood elevations upstream on the east side of 4th Avenue without creating anything that would be problematic downstream. But again, something that before we would complete a sizing there, we definitely want to look at the implications of that VR model.
President Bradley,
Yes.
Board of Managers, I'll make a note here regarding a distinction between repair and maintenance. The items in the conditions report are maintenance, and items that staff, under their job descriptions and general direction of the board to fulfill those 103E maintenance obligations, would regularly just undertake these efforts. Whereas the Pine Street culvert requires a board action with it having the WACA implications, Wetland Conservation Act, and the need for an action by the board as we originally saw it. So I'll note that Tom and the team would undertake these matters regardless, but here they're laid out in the context of that other culvert lowering, so you can see what work is planned.
Very good.
And also, may I add that in addition to the Pine Street culvert, which was one of the elements of the alternative 4 approach for managing upstream of Pine Street, if you recall that, one of those other elements was the driveway culvert, or the road culvert at 137th Avenue, which is actually a driveway. We intend to work with contractor at the same time as Pine Street or adjacent, however it best works out, to lower that culvert to the DNR permitted elevation. But it's not as part of this effort, it's just separate maintenance.
All right.
And if I may add, Mr. President.
Yes.
We feel this report can serve to answer previous questions that have been brought up to the board during open mic sessions from the public as answers to questions that were presented to you. However, we're prepared with other answers if needed.
Anyone have any questions of either Chris or Tom? Or otherwise?
Mr. President, just emphasize, as I understand this, Tom, that these items that are seasonal are intended to be done this year when time allows, and then in addition to the immediate priority items. Is that correct?
Correct, Mr. Waller.
So, and some of those things that are listed in here are, for example, the 137th Street driveway culvert is listed there.
Correct.
And I noticed that there's also a clean out down at Lilac Street. Is that, and under the location number 3, it mentions the Air Park culverts.
Yes, at each end of the
Yep.
Air Park culvert.
Okay.
as I've noted. In addition, in front of the prison and along 4th Avenue is also intended to be done prior to the lowering of the culvert.
Has there been any progress on the prison culvert being lowered? You know, we were waiting for them to take some action.
Mr. President, Mr. Waller, I believe that it was, the permit has been issued, and maybe Patrick can help me with that.
Yeah, at least conditionally approved.
Conditionally
once it
approved.
is issued.
I believe the state's waiting for their contracting process at this point. We'll lower it as soon as possible, or
Is it being lowered or repaired?
it's replaced.
Is it being replaced?
In kind.
Yeah. It's the location, the elevation is appropriate as is, if I
Yes.
recall.
Thank you, Mr. President, that's all.
Okay. Patrick, when you have that information, you can break in. Did you wish to speak at this time, Mr. Robertson? If you'd state your name and address for the record, please.
Mr. President, Scott Robinson, 8179 4th Avenue, Lino Lakes, Minnesota. I am the president of A&L SA, which is our company that basically encompasses our family, not the Robinson Landscaping. We are two separate entities, but we are family. And at one time, my grandfather and Brian's grandfather were partners in business out there, which is when the ditches were dug under the authority of the county. I guess I'll start off with, I have many locations I want to talk about here. You brought up, let's see here. Could you scroll up a little bit? Is it location 12 north of? This is location, location 13, is it? Is that what's cost us? No, I believe it is, yeah. Where location 13 and 12 meet is 4th Avenue there. That's just north of my driveway, my brother's in my driveway. Is that the culvert, is that one of the culverts you're talking about replacing to a bigger size? Under my driveway there? Or were you talking about? Yeah,
Yeah, Mr. President, the one I'm referring to is the one that I'm zoomed into. It'd be just to the west of 4th Avenue there,
Right.
where it crosses.
and the determination is because the culvert under 4th Avenue, just upstream of that, is a larger size than that culvert that's underneath my driveway there.
That is correct.
Right. But the culvert under 4th Avenue was resized when that got replaced to a bigger size from what it was previously.
I am not sure on that. I'd have to
I'm
go
quite
back and look
certain,
at the
but-
records.
I'm quite certain it was, because I've seen the culverts. So you're basically gonna keep stacking up bigger culverts above us and put more water onto us, and then have us replace culverts for the size. And I have no problem with making the ditch system work and perform to its best ability. But now that culvert was replaced by the Watershed recently, when 2011 or 12, I think it was. Whenever the ditch got redug there, coming up from 4th Avenue back up, when the repair order was issued, that culvert was replaced by the Watershed and set at a grade that was approved at that time.
Are you referring to the
My driveway culvert,
Yeah.
is correct.
Yeah.
So we're gonna change it now?
We need to look at to see if changing it would provide a benefit and not.
So that's not gonna be part of this order you're talking about now then? That's future determination?
It's not part of an order, but it'd be something that the district staff would be taking on to investigate. Sometime over the coming of the summer, just take a look at the sizing.
Okay, could you zoom back out? And to the north, location 5, below Pine Street, down by where my hayfield is there, is there a driveway there you're talking about? Replacing the culvert? Right about there, right, just a slightly up to be centered, but is there a culvert there that's being talked about getting replaced then too?
Mr. President of the board, there is a culvert there that I can't recall exactly where it is, but yeah, it's somewhere on the map here. But yeah, it'd be one that would need to be lowered, and I think that's all that we were recommending. Is that correct, Tom?
Yes, Mr. President. It's the crossing directly down from Pine Street on your field.
Right, from the one hayfield to,
Right.
the hayfield into the north end of the sod field there,
One
yes.
that we had done before.
Yes.
We had done the ASIC or the grade, we
Right.
just kind of,
And then there's another culvert to the south there where it comes into the ditch there
right,
on the very bottom.
that had. the-
You're saying in the future, that's gonna have to be lowered or resized? Where the cursor is right now?
Yeah, that one would not need to be resized.
Oh, it doesn't,
I
okay.
don't believe so.
So I believe that's an 18-inch culvert right now, but the one at Pine Street's gonna be 24, correct?
The one at Pine Street is 24. now.
It is 24, and it will be replaced with a 24.
We're taking the
but-
one
but
that's
it's
there
going
and
lower.
just dropping it.
Right. And the one north of it, the one that we just talked about, that's an 18, I believe? Or is that a 16?
That might be a 15, Scott.
Right, it's a plastic one. I know that,
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
Correct. Thank you.
So I guess what I'm getting at is you're lowering and making larger culverts upstream of us. And you're lowering it to you're changing the as constructed subsequently improved level or the official profile of the ditch for those areas of the drainage system to where it was dug either originally or improved to because of forensic engineering. We out there did borings or just been plain cleaning the ditch. You're taking the slough out, you know where the hard pan is, that's the bottom of the ditch. And my question is, why are you cherry picking parts of the drainage system and doing that? I mean, you have this whole engineering study here with a hard line and the grades and all this. Well, the hard line you have for the grade on here is your official profile of the ditch. It's not where the forensic engineering was done prior to that last restructuring or reclaiming the repair of the ditch, where you knew that it was lower than that at one time, but you chose to put an official profile of ditch higher and then used an acronym like government bureaucracies do, and it says one thing, but it means another. Because to me, the as-constructed subsequently improved level of that ditch is where our grandfathers dug it to. We were under the authority of the county. That was the authority body at the time. There's documentation of that. He came in, he got permission, the county passed it. They said, we got no money, go pay for it yourselves, which they did. But it is still under the authority of this group, your prior group, to do it. So why are you gonna cherry pick and say the as-constructed subsequently improved level is one thing in one area of the ditch, but not in the other? And I know the answer. You're gonna say the engineering firm says it's okay, that the ditch can handle it. Well, that's not a legitimate point. The point is we are afforded to, and the whole ditch system is afforded the level that ditch was dug to. We're afforded to that drainage level. And it affects our property directly, because now we have stuff that's in a floodplain that wouldn't be. But what does that do to the value of your land if you have to pay for flood insurance when you don't? It's a huge amount of money.
May I ask you a question?
Sure, certainly, Mr. President.
So, I've read this thing several times,
Yeah.
and by my reading, I didn't find any cherry picking. I found that in each and every section, except for one place where there was an outlet to a public water, where we're going to take it down to DNR, we're going to drop it 7 inches to get down to the DNR approved level, because we didn't want to drain a public wetland at the cost that would be to that.
Oh, absolutely.
As far as I know, when I read this thing, the whole thing is going to get down to ASIC.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. I have an argument with your ASIC.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I'm having an argument with the ASIC. How you determine what the ASIC is. And the determination, I was told, when the ditch was repaired in, was it 2011, 28? But
So,
Houston Engineering went out and did forensic,
Okay.
if I call it forensic engineering. They did soil borings on that ditch. They know how deep that ditch was dug to back in '54.
and that's the level we set.
No, it's not. If you look at it, they set it between 18 and 20 inches high from that. Because if culvert laid here, culvert laid there, well, let's draw a line from culvert to culvert. That's the level we're gonna maintain it at, or make the official profile. And they did not go down to the actual dug elevation. The culvert under the air park, when they installed it, they filled the ditch in, just like they did on 35W over here for Priners and Metro Gun Club and Glen Rabine, and that was proven in a court of law, right? This body got sued. This body's on the hook for wetland mitigation for Metro Gun Club because of that. Because of the loss that they received back then when the state put the freeway in.
Yeah, that's a whole different story. That's because we had not, at that time, this board back then had not ever cleaned out a single damn ditch.
I understand that.
And
That's
we've subsequently cleaned out that ditch
right, but that's one. And
to ASICs. And as far as I know, so I'm going to stop you right here, there is not before this board a action to reopen our ASIC determination. This is a decision to clean out to our ASIC determination.
that's what I'm telling you.
And so thank you for your comments.
Okay,
That issue is not properly before this board. This board is not going to re-examine the ASIC at this time.
well, you did on Pine Street Culvert,
No, it's taken it down to the ASIC.
because you made the ASIC where the ditch was dug to originally, but you haven't done that the whole ditch wide. That's what I'm saying. The whole length of the ditch, you have not done that. I mean, it was in, whatever.
Does one of my experts want to comment whether or not we are taking it to ASIC?
Mr. President, yeah, we've used evidence along the way, and we've, had multiple iterations of this, working through the process of determining, as you indicated, where the ASIC is. Certainly, if there was information brought in that would demonstrate that the ASIC is incorrect, then that would be something that the board could review, but I'm not aware of any information has been brought in to counter where we're at with that.
So, Mr. Roberts, thank you for your comments.
Could, Mr. President, could I have
Yeah.
you paid to have that whole thing cleaned, right? So that was, you petitioned to be able to clean it.
My
And you were
grandfather,
allowed to
my
clean it
grandfather
to
and
an
Brian's grandfather.
elevation. Is that the elevation we're going to? What he petitioned and cleaned to?
There was no elevation developed back in the 50s when the work was done there. There was no action done at that time that we could find in the documentation that was related to the drainage system. All we found in the record was the permission from the county board at that time to allow the landowners to modify the system as they saw fit. So we don't have any record of anything that was developed at that time to demonstrate where and how the ditch was to be dug to. When we went through to consolidate the drainage system back in 2011, and that was done under a public hearing process, that consolidation established where the drainage system was for alignment and for the depth based on the documentation we had. But yeah, again, that was done in 2011, I believe.
Okay, so you weren't given any elevations to work with or anything? You just...
No, just permission by the county board to go ahead and move the ditch. Because it met, if you want to scroll out, location 12. Oop. So location 12 where it came in there, and then up to location 5. If you took a line and took it from the end of where location does the turn from going southwest and goes straight north, on that corner, you took that and go to the corner where location 5 is straight north and then going back to the east, the pink one, the ditch went across that field at that angle like that and up there. And then it actually continued up farther, a little bit past the northwest. And so that piece, that 40, and then there was another one that went in the middle and came back south, like right in the middle of that field of location 5 and 12. There was a location there in the middle that came back down to the southeast. So they didn't want to farm 3 pieces of land with ditches all through them. And so they consolidated, they moved the ditch straight north around. They didn't, the reason why there's the angle in the corner is all those trees there. They didn't want to cut down all these huge cottonwoods, ash, whatever, back in the time. They cut across and went back down. So that's where the ditch got moved to. Used to go straight south from the corner of location 12, straight south, straight down to location 9, and straight down through there.
Yeah.
That's where it used to go.
Right.
Okay. So like I said, they had the permission from the county to go ahead and dig that ditch. That was the water authority at the time. It's pretty simple. They said, go ahead and do it. And it's not just us that is benefited by this drainage. I mean, everybody north of us, they wouldn't be able to build the houses where they are had that ditch not been dug like it is. It's pretty simple. But
Mr. President. I don't think there's any discussion or problem with the authority that the drainage authority at the time, the Anoka County Board authorized the Robinson brothers to dig the ditch.
yeah,
What I hear the engineer saying is he can't find a record of it as to the actual depth they dug it to. And I hear you saying that you have to check that by the hard pan, which is, and I don't know that the engineering firm, when we did this in 2011, went out there and checked the hard pan. I'm not sure how they did or didn't. But what you're saying is that the new, when we reestablished the historic record, which is what we were trying to do in 2011,
yes.
what we didn't take into account the depth of the actual depth that was dug to, that now the ASIC is a foot higher or more. Was it 18 inches, you said?
Some
Something
places,
like that.
some places
In your
it's 20, some places 20 inches to where the hard pan was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So is there any, how do you propose that we go out and check that hard pan to see if the ASIC is correct.
It was already done and paid for. Houston Engineering already, there was, when this was getting done,
But, okay, I'm not saying that, so your Houston Engineering didn't find that hard pan
they
was
found
correct?
it. I saw graphs and profiles of ditch, what the ditch profile was from east to west, north to south, what the levels were, where the hard pan was. They had it all in the engineering when this board, none of you were here, but when this board decided where that ASIC was gonna be, they didn't go to the hard pan. They decided, okay, we got a culvert on Main Street at this level, we got a culvert at Carl Street on this level, and that's why, I mean, if you look at your own ASIC right now, the level of that ditch where you have it, it's as straight as an arrow. Do you think a drag line in 1954 got that level at that exact engineered level? Well, the ASIC got established as a arbitrary number, this from culvert to culvert. Well, who says the culverts were at the bottom where it was originally dug to? Because they're not.
President Bradley?
Yes, sir.
I would think it may be helpful to the board is if Mr. Otterness, Chris, commented on the assembly of information from the assessment that was done on site as to the original ditch depth that was found and some of that forensic determination, what may have been done at the culverts in regards to the depth, because it's the overall function of this system. I'm sure there's portions of it that are deeper than others, and how that comes out to a functional drainage grade, which is what I understand the ASIC to be intending.
Yes, so we do have to look at the system as a whole, and if there are areas that are dug deeper than others that are, I guess I could characterize them as being overdug, those areas may exist even right now, and you'll see that on our profiles. A lot of areas on the system, the bottom of the ditch is already dug below the ASIC level. And that over digging may have occurred more recently, but in most cases that's something that has occurred over time. And important to keep in mind that even if the the desire was to lower the ASIC grade on certain properties down to where the hard pan is, it still has to climb up to get out of the system and out. So it functionally would not change how anything would operate if you were to try to dig out, say, muck in an area that has already been overdug. If we're looking at going downstream from here, there isn't a lot of grade here. So digging out any portion, for instance, of location 4 or location 5 on the screen here, or even location 3 would functionally not change how the system operates, because we still don't have the grade to make it function any better than what it is right now.
Can I have, yes, so that's basically saying the culverts are where they're at, so that's what's gonna control the water. Because my contention is the culverts aren't as low as they should be. You're telling me that the culverts are where they're at, so that's the functioning of the ditch, so it's too bad. So of course you're right, it's not gonna change anything if you don't move the culverts.
Mr. President,
John?
I was one of the individuals that was here in 2008 to 2011 when we actually went through the first round of establishing this lower portion of ACD 102232. I would encourage the board to go back and look at the historical review documents that were used at that time by the board to weigh the evidence and determine the as-constructed grade line in this portion of the drainage system. There is nothing that Mr. Robinson has said that is incorrect. His family was given permission in the 50s to go out and do some ditch work, but that was just a portion of a history of modification of this ditch system since the original establishment of Ditch 10 in 1884, 1890 timeframe, and then being overlaid with Ditch 22 and then being overlaid with ditch 32 and a slicing off of a portion of the watershed of ACD 5362. There's an incredible history here, and the Robinsons, part of that history is important because we recognized that there were certain rights that the Robinson properties established in themselves through those activities in the 1950s and then subsequent to that. In the end, if you look at that report, what you will see is that there is other evidence that indicates that the grade line of the ditch, just as Chris has described, could only sustain a certain elevation, and that the majority of those areas that cross the Robinson properties, those were over-excavated, and there's really no way to drain them out without improving lower portions of the system, and I think that's what Chris was trying to describe. This was not solely based on culverts. There were some culverts that were considered to be more reliable than others. That is true. This was not solely based on soil borings, and it was tried to account for anomalies in that grade line that could not be corrected without improvement to the system. So I would just encourage the board to go back and look at the historical documentation of its prior actions, and I think what you'll see was a reasonable attempt by the prior board to weigh the evidence and come up with a grade line that would allow the system to work most efficiently for the majority of landowners in the system. It certainly did not satisfy every individual landowner's desire in the process, and nor can we ever do that.
Mr. Kolb, would you kindly explain what it means to the fact that you've got something that's been overdug and now, of course, runs up against the part that was properly dug, and necessity of improvements, and what would cost and mean for an improvement versus a repair?
Thank you, Mr. President. I won't characterize anything as being improperly dug. It was just done the way it was at the time.
I didn't mean it.
But it does create practical challenges. So we cannot lower that ditch, make it steeper, make it any more hydrologically efficient than it is today without a petition for improvement. If we have a petition for improvement, then we've got to go through that improvement process, which includes multiple public hearings, engineering, agency review. What we know of late in terms of agency review is that they are going to be highly critical of any change that either increases the hydrologic regime downstream or transports sediment or other pollutants downstream or otherwise impacts resources that are in the landscape that might be drained or otherwise damaged. So if that is part of the impacts of an improvement, then we also have to go through mitigation and other activities. So there's a practicality portion of any improvement, but until we have a petition, we are limited as to what we can do. And I think what's being proposed here is to try to make the system as efficient as possible. I will note that the culverts adjacent to 4th Avenue, what was stated and what's being proposed is a hydraulic analysis to see what is the impact of altering them. So there's no immediate plan to alter them. So to Mr. Robinson's concern, I think before we did anything there, we're going to analyze, does that have impact downstream, that is impact upstream?
That's future. It's
Right.
not now.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. So I just want to make sure you understood that. So again, I'm just going to encourage the board, because we can go back and forth. Mr. Robinson has an opinion about what happened in 2011, but I would just encourage the board to go back and look at that historical documentation, and what you'll see is a very challenged situation that I think the board at that time made the best of, given the evidence that it had at the time.
Mr. President, could I ask Scott one question?
Sure.
How far did you dig south?
How far?
Yeah.
They started at the lake. They started all the way down at Marchand.
So you started at Marchand.
They started at
went all the
Marchand and
way
came
to
all,
your-
and came all the way up.
So
and
that's the part I'm not understanding. If they were given permission to dig all the way from Marchand Lake to their property, which part of it is that we're questioning?
We don't know all of those details. What we know is that in the minutes of the county board, there is a request of the Robinsons to do some work on 102232, and the county said, go ahead and do it. But there's no specifics as to what was done, what grades were established, what the configuration of the ditch was following that work. And so again, some of that would have been accounted for in the forensic investigation, as Mr. Robinson describes it. When Houston went out and did their soil borings, they would have found those same, those same hard pan, we've called it in the past, but they would have found that grade line that was constructed there. And I think that there is some evidence that there was grade change, but the grade change that we're talking about in those more northern portions in that location 11, the ones that actually traverse the sod fields, those were well below what we were able to discover further downstream. So again, there's a lot of history here and a lot of private work that was done with and without documentation, and nobody denies that. So again, I think the best articulation, the best investigation, and the best accumulation of all the evidence related to that is in those original historical reviews from, I think, 2009 to 11 timeframe.
Sure.
Mr. Robinson, if I could ask you a question on the map. Could you tell me, so you start off from location, you think your grandparents started off from location one?
Zoom out. It's all the way down at location 1 down there.
All right, so,
Well, actually,
Past it.
it's gonna be past that, isn't it?
Yeah. Be to the lake, the
Well,
lake would be,
It goes through here, doesn't it? This is where it crosses Lake Drive. Right here. Oh, that's 35, I'm sorry, it's down.
Lake Drive's not on the map, Scott.
Okay, sorry. So it's where, all the way that goes out to Marchand there.
so did you then go up to location 2, 3, 8, 9, 10?
Where they dug back in 54?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what section you're thinking.
They would have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12. And then actually, it would have been down some too, wouldn't it, Brad? It'd be down, Brian. When it came down to about here, I think, is the ditch from here goes north. But that's a private ditch there, according to, which used to be county ditch. That used to be the county ditch there at one time. And that's where it got redirected from, was there.
Mr. Chair, I have a question,
Certainly.
if I may. Would it make more sense to just, I understand there's action required by the board on this item, but would it make more sense to just table it pending the review of the historical documentation that
No.
Attorney Kolb has mentioned? Well, I mean, so here, I assumed that you would probably say that, so let me just go ahead and share my frustration, and I understand that the other Robinson has some comments on this as well. Sorry, I don't mean to refer to you as the other Robinson, but
It's Brian.
yes, Brian, thank you. I feel, I will say this, I appreciate that the scope of the work goes beyond just pine and drogel, which is always what we refer to when we talk about 102232. It's why historically I voted no on anything that comes before us regarding this ditch system, because it doesn't take this full scope look at the entire ditch system. But when we know, we sit in these meetings, we get the emails, they come to workshops, we have repeat customers, and I feel like they are sharing their concerns, and we're so hell-bent on being right that sometimes we just don't look through a lens of like, how do we work together and try to do the right thing for these property owners? I'm all for maintenance in the ditch system. Again, I appreciate the broad lens review on the entire system instead of just our 2 pain points, but I will not vote for this until we have some kind of resolve with residents. I don't know why we want to find ways to keep them coming in here telling us that there's issues with their ditch system instead of finding some way to, collaborate or whatever it is. It very much frustrates me, which is why I have a really difficult time voting on moving these things forward, because we have the same people coming in here expressing concerns and we're telling them what's best for them, but we don't live there. We don't have standing water on our properties. It's standing water on their properties, or ditch issues or water flow issues or whatever it is. So it's very frustrating that I don't even have the option to table the item until we have a full historical review as indicated by Attorney Kolb. I mean, quite frankly, I could just make the motion, you could see where it goes, and you can't stop me from doing that. But I mean,
But if I could explain.
it's very frustrating though, because we paint parts of the picture, but then when we get those parts painted, we don't put it all together and go, okay, is this really what's best based on all the concerns that we've heard repeatedly from the same property owners?
So all I want to say is we have a responsibility to maintain what we have. And we've got a report here to maintain what we have. We have this person at the table here who says, you ought to go back to what you did in 2011 because you didn't do it right in 2011. That's a whole nother story. And we can do that. We can go back and look at it. But that's why I wanted to know what he thought his grandparents had cleaned out, because he did not clean out the outlet to this ditch.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
The outlet to the ditch is
No,
this
oh,
section
no,
and this
the ditch is
section.
way down here, beyond the page on the
That's not
Marshon
the,
Lake.
that's, I thought that was the inlet.
No, this flows this way, all the way
Okay.
down.
Yeah.
And you don't have the outlet on this map.
You don't have
You
the outlet
stop,
on
you
the
stop
map.
before you get there.
So because
So let's-
section 1 says inlet.
I feel your pain. I do.
So, Mr. President, may I ask the staff a question?
Yeah.
I have my grandfather and my father have been frustrated for all these years as well.
So it says outlet.
I got one of those too.
So that's what got me. Location 1 outlet, Marshall Lake. You're saying, I mean, okay, that's
That's-
the
You have
outlet
to zoom
to
out
it.
from this, but it
Outlet
doesn't go
to
any
it.
farther
Outlet
out.
to it.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
I do.
So, Mr. President, staff, Tom, Nick, this is an item for action here for doing minor maintenance.
Yes.
And so if it was tabled theoretically today, that doesn't prevent you from doing this minor maintenance, does it? It just, all this is not accepting the report at this time. You're still able to go ahead and do work on this, correct?
President Bradley, Manager Waller, this agenda item is to address the board as to the overall condition of the system, because when you previously considered the lowering of Pine Street, there were concerns, hey, we want to be
Downstream
looking
concerns.
at the entire system as well as the use of wetland credits. Correct. All the materials within this document are already delegated by the board to staff. This is not an action item, it's an explanation, it's a information for the board to consider so that it is of an understanding with staff, and then when it considers the Pine Street culvert lowering, which initially is a Wetland Conservation Act decision that would have required the board's approval. A replacement plan is the board's authority. Through Patrick's good work with Bowser and the change to the Wetland Conservation Act, the lowering of Pine Street is not seen as an impact requiring replacement, which brings it back to a no loss, which is a delegated authority from the board to staff to move through those. Nonetheless, because you directed staff to bring it back to the board, we're doing that. And the board taking the action in light of the delegated authority to staff gives it the utmost certainty as the state and other parties consider the way the state changed the law and how decisions are being made.
So, really, the item for action today on the board is item number 2. That's
Correct.
the-
Correct.
Yes.
That's the item that's important.
Right.
These are all minor maintenance things. There's really no motion here, which has been, usually we get a motion, on our agenda, and there's no motion here. And the reason is, there's no action to be taken with the, except you could say the motion is to accept this report, but this report was going to be done regardless. Now, it's important today that this hearing is, or meeting today has come out with some important information. One, where the Robinson great-grandfathers had authority from the Drainage Authority to fix the ditch or improve it or whatever. There's no technical record is kept that way. But we do have the ability to go and take a look with soil borings on the portion from Marshon Lake up to what we call location 1 here, to tell you what that hardcore pan is in there. That I think is in the historical record. I hope so, at least. And so that gives the board somewhat of a level. Now, it may be that they dug it deeper on, once they crossed 14 or so, or someplace in County Road 14 is what I'm talking about. And that's what the engineers are saying. This is down here, and it doesn't match, as I understand. That's what they're telling us.
You're saying the borings don't match.
The borings won't match, yeah. And that's because I would believe that the borings for the portion that's through that to Marshon Lake are pretty much what it's been. It hasn't changed much. I would say that's actually what it was dug to in 53 or 54.
I would agree it's pretty close if you get past the freeway,
Yeah,
south.
yeah.
I would say that because of the
The
grade, the grade is such a drop from there
Okay.
to the lake.
And
I would
there's-
say that any silt or anything would probably flush right into the lake,
And there's
yes.
one other question I'd like to ask. What's your opinion of the grade drop from County Road 14 to the lake, Marshon Lake? How many feet is that?
Well, my grandfather always used to say we had 19 feet of drop from the farm to the lake.
Okay, and you're talking about the north edge of your farm, or?
He always said the south corner, the one that's down there by, the south corner of their property, by Carl,
Yeah.
by
Brian,
Carl.
Do you agree with that? What's the drop in your opinion?
I don't see it being 19.
I don't should be 19 feet either, no, but,
What do
If
you,
I had to guess, I would say 6 feet.
6 or 7, somewhere in there? That's, and the distance is what, 2-3 miles?
what is it?
County Road 14 to Marshon Lake
It's
through the.
a mile, it's a mile from Main Street to
Couple
the
miles.
prison, right? So another, it'd be at most 2 miles.
2 miles. 7 feet, 2 miles, pretty good drop. It's not flat.
Yeah.
I saw what?
Could I see the map one more time? Please? Because there's a culvert that's not on here that we had talked about, the one that's in the southwest corner, or southeast corner there by Main Street and the east side of our farm, the one that's in the driveway there,
Right.
that's collapsing, or at least there's some sloughing going down.
Right.
And that's not on here at all for action, I don't think. I didn't see it on here.
So where is it located on the map?
I think it was location 3 and 4 there, up to the west, so it'd be location 11, I think it was. No, the one that's on the north side of Main Street, the east driveway where our farms meet, like, the ditch goes north, but there's the one coming in from our farm, our east driveway, where our gates are there. That culvert is collapsed, it's got a bunch of silt and stuff going in. And that's not on, that wasn't on, and we had talked about that back in March when I was here.
Yeah,
Yeah, if
Mr.
you take
President,
location 11 to where it meets location 5, that corner there. There's a culvert right there, and there's a, there's a power pole from UPA, well, not UPA, it's Great Rivers Energy, whatever, that's right next to it. So it's gonna take some doing to work on that culvert. Just because of steepness of ditch and being in the public roadway with County 14.
And that's part of the official ditch system.
Yes.
Mr. President,
Is,
Scott, yes, we did send staff walk through the culvert, and it's not collapsing, it's, and maybe Abel, you were out there, you could address it.
Yeah, it didn't seem to be collapsing. Connor went all the way through. Oh, I'm gonna come up.
He crawled?
Yeah, he squatted down and he crawled basically all the way through, and it wasn't squatting and it's not even looking smushed at all. There was just a lot of water in the system at the time too, so it didn't seem to be that culvert was crushed, but
So what
There's
did
a lot
you,
of gravel in the downstream approach for it, where there's a lot of gravel stacked up in there.
there was on the downstream side, it was higher gravel. So if you look at the map, right, basically the culvert's like right here.
Oh,
So-
it's right at the end there, yeah. right
Yeah,
there.
but it crosses this entrance, and then there was more gravel on this end than that end. So there was something, but I couldn't measure it.
All
The
right.
water wasn't as high on Connor's way.
so as I understand it, there appears to be an interest to looking at this claim based on the 2011 record. That is a separate, completely different thing than trying to get this thing maintained and trying to lower Pine Street now. So I would suggest that we move on.
That's great, and all I would say is that, in my opinion, from what I see, we're going to a forensic level on that Pine Street culvert, and we're gonna establish that as the ASIC. But in my opinion, we have not done that through the whole system.
I heard you loud and clear.
Okay. All right. Thank you,
We-
Mr. President.
We've got a lot, we got business to do. Is there anything more you need to add?
Yes, Scott covered most of it. If we can't argue the,
Identify yourself, Brian.
Brian Robinson, 310 Main Street, Robinson Landscaping.
Yeah.
And if we can't argue the historic depths, can you assure us that you're gonna maintain the system at the depth? Because if you look at, can you zoom the map out again? The entire section 4, it's from end to end, it's way higher than your historic levels. I mean, that needs to be addressed, I would say, immediately, especially from Carl Street to the airstrip. But if you look at the whole thing has having problems. It's all above its historic grade. And then another question or something concern I'd like to bring up is at Carl Street, we have a failing culvert that's, a couple hundred, I'm sure you know about it, Tom.
Yes.
You know well about it. When are we gonna address that? Because I never really, there's nothing in your reports mentioning that, and you guys have known, at least Tom's known about this collapsing culvert for at least a year now.
We'll address it at your convenience.
Okay.
If-
And is there any, funds or anything available to cover the culvert cost? Because this is it's considered a private crossing.
Yes, Mr. President, I would propose to replace it as part of the system now and make that culvert crossing a part of the system, which would relieve the landowner from future maintenance of that crossing or responsibility for it,
Okay.
since as an expedient.
Yeah, because that's going to be that thing could collapse any day now.
Right,
Like,
it's-
so.
Yeah, I've had staff checking that after every rain, because, as you know, after last year, we pumped around it, which provided,
Which, yeah, that was kind of a waste of
Relief.
your time and money.
Right.
Because Tom, you obviously went out there and you can see the water level was at this side of the culvert and on this side of the culvert. Well, what's that tell us? That it's working.
well, actually, yeah, like.
It wasn't higher on one side than the other.
Well, it was,
You know
yeah,
that. You were there.
the water
I was there. My brother was there.
The water was higher upstream of the crossing.
No, it wasn't. You could look at the water level. It don't take a rocket scientist to figure out the level of the level.
But once we
It
pumped
wasn't.
it, though, it dropped upstream of Main Street by feet.
Well, that would have naturally lowered anyway, just over time. Your pump had nothing to do with that.
Mr. President.
I think you were just doing that to appease the people up on Pine Street and
Mr.
that were
President,
complaining.
May I ask you a question, Brian?
Absolutely.
Yeah, all right. Did I understand in just a few moments ago, you said that you asked if that culvert we're talking about could be part of the system and have the district?
Yeah, well, this-
Just let me finish.
Sorry.
The district responsible for the replacement cost and for the maintenance of it in the future? Is that what you're proposing?
I'm just proposing that, well, here's the deal.
I
Is
mean,
it
I
the
think that-
landowner's responsibility to pay
No,
for
no,
the
no.
culvert?
If it become the district's responsibility to pay for that culvert, would that be acceptable to you?
Well, I'd have to run it by my family, but I'm sure it would be, because
Okay, thank
it's
you.
got to be dealt with, one way or the other. And my family just wants to know, are we going to be on the hook to pay for the,
I think.
Sounds like not.
because it used
I
to be a
think-
private
yes.
ditch, and then you
Thank you,
guys
Mr.
commandeered the
President.
ditch system years ago, and so now it's
Where,
a
so,
county ditch.
what I hear Tom saying to you is that the district would be responsible for the replacement of it, the maintenance of it. It would become part of the public system. Therefore, the public would be responsible for that. And that's what Tom's proposing. I hear you saying that would be, to you personally, it's
Well,
acceptable?
we're still going to have full access to use the driveway in and out?
Yes, yes.
Well, it's absolutely something that my family would consider.
Yeah, yeah. It would
But it
be-
actually needs to be dealt with sooner than later. You
So-
get another rainfall like we had last spring, and if this
Correct,
culvert collapses, you can kiss everything north of
so-
there goodbye.
Correct. And so that's an important
Yeah, this whole ditch
agreement. If
system's
we
a
could-
major system, I
if
would
we could
imagine, for you guys.
Come to that, it would be, I think the district staff would be happy about that, the district would be happy about it, and I hope you're, as the landowner, would be happy that you
Yeah,
still have
I just wanna
access,
see
you
it
can still
fixed.
cross it, it's usable.
Yep.
And the expense of it, replacing it, because it is in very poor condition. And so.
And a very
thank
important
you.
culvert.
That's an important progress.
Well, I just want to be assured that, like I said, can't argue the historic depths, but according to your Houston engineering maps, at least keep the ditch to that level. You can see on like page 32 of your deal, you can look at the side view of the ditch profile, and the entire system is above where it's supposed to be. And that's just gonna slow everything down. I mean, you open up Pine Street and lower a culvert there, that's just gonna basically create a basin on our farms until the water can get up and over and through the airstrip. And I understand why you guys don't wanna deal with the airstrip. I mean, that's probably gonna not be a cheap endeavor. I mean, I don't know if the culvert's failing there as well, or if it's the correct grade. But the ditch profile on both sides of them is abundantly clear according to your engineering. I believe it's page 32. So I just want to be assured that you guys are going to maintain it to, like, again, I can't argue the historic levels of it, but at least I want to be assured that you're going to maintain the ditch at that ASAC level.
Mr. President, just to reiterate, we are recommending that in the report that culvert be replaced that
Yep.
Mr. Robinson's talking about, and we are recommending that the ditch be cleaned out on either side of the Air Park culvert where we have the depth of sediment shown in our plan.
Yep.
So we are recommending that already and are planning to do that during the summer.
I thought it was just
Mr.
going to the
President.
south end of the airstrip, but if you're assuring me that it's going to go all the way to Carl Street, because that's got a huge bottleneck in that
Yeah,
area.
yeah,
And
that's-
you can see it on your map.
That is
And then
what's
at that time, I
recommended.
think it'd be a good time to maybe
Yes, Mr.
do
President.
that
we're
culvert.
Planning to, like I said, the opening was that we're going, if the board approves, regardless if it's tabled, the next action is tabled or not, this maintenance work is gonna be completed this year.
Okay,
Hopefully this spring.
before any
Before
considering
any-
dropping the culvert.
Any dropping of culverts.
All right,
Thank you.
thank
We've
you.
got the
Thank you for your
contractor
time.
already on the line, hopefully, to do the work.
And I'll just coordinate with Abel then?
Yeah,
All right.
Absolutely.
is the field man.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
So I believe that is the end of this report. No action is necessary. So let's move on to item 2. Please explain what we're being asked to do here.
Yes, President Bradley, Board of Managers. So this is the Wetland Conservation Act application that you guided that we, or directed, we bring back to the board. We, again, provided the previous material as context of, so that you could have that front of mind as you considered this. This is the Pine Street culvert lowering, and Patrick ran it through the Wetland Conservation Act, and he has a number of items to make note of here in the packet.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. President Bradley, Board of Managers, probably not a ton to add to this discussion, but correct, this is the culvert we've heard referred to under West Pine Street. It's on the main trunk of 102232. The application, as Nick mentioned, was resubmitted and noticed in March of this year. It was originally sent out as a replacement plan that was consistent with how it was distributed in the fall of last year. Through discussion of the 2024 statute changes that affect the Wetland Conservation Act, we did come to a consensus that although there is a drainage effect, it is one that will not result in any sort of impact to wetland, nothing that would require replacement. The TEP has concurred with that decision, so we have, I guess, changed the application that all of this activity, the lowering of the culvert, would fit criteria of no loss. So we wouldn't have to, provide any credits out of Browns Preserve Wetland Bank. I'm happy to go into further detail as you'd like. Otherwise, I do have the proposed notice of decision on page 54, and there is the resolution on page 68.
Any questions, Patrick? This is obviously very good news.
Mr. President, congratulations, Patrick. It's marvelous not to spend
Yes.
over $200,000 in wetland credits for something that had no change. I think that's very, very good work. And it's taken you months to get the TEP panel and the powers to be in St. Paul to see the light.
I would like to echo that, because that was important to me, too.
Excellent. Thanks.
Is that a motion?
So I would like to move resolution number 2025-03, no loss determination for ACD 10-2232 culvert replacement at West Pine Street. Whereas the applicant proposes to lower the culvert to an elevation 897.0 feet, upstream invert 896.9, downstream invert in conformance with the as constructed and subsequently improved condition ASIC of ACD 10-2232 at that location. Therefore, be it resolved that the board approves the notice of decision as presented by district staff and authorizes the district administrator to issue the NOD, notice of decision, with any final non-material changes and distribute it to all in accordance with WACA, the Wetland Conservation Act, and its implementing rules. It calls, so that's my motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It calls for, go ahead, discussion.
Discussion. And so I would note that this work report that was presented earlier has studies in it for the sizes of culverts that are just downstream in the sections that are below that. And that those culverts are maybe sized incorrectly because they're technically smaller than the one up at Pine Street is now. And so after the study, well, there'll be further decision as to how those culverts will be maintained. I'll put it that way. They may, maintenance to a culvert mean it can be replaced or sized properly. So that's what I would say is contains in this report here today. I think that's what one of the objections is, needs to be taken care of, looked at.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I do have a question, maybe to the engineer, Tom or Patrick. The lowering of the culvert that's being recommended, does that address some of the concerns that Mr. Stowe repeatedly brings to us regarding his property? I know he came in here last week with videos and all kinds of things of plug ditches and ill-aligned depths of all the things. Does this help address any of that?
Would you put the map up, please?
Well,
'Cause this is his general vicinity.
Yep. I just wanted the map up to see it.
I can.
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. President, Manager Robertson. So, yes, the analysis that we did in this application addresses those concerns that Mr. Stowe had. He had concerns about more water or changes in water elevation downstream. We modeled that, and we were able in our model to demonstrate that that any change that would be happening downstream would be insignificant. And so that's how we address that. I can't say that we'll still resolve all concerns, but we've at least addressed them through analysis.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, just to jump in, just to point it out on the map. So the culvert that is proposed to be lowered is at location 7, and Mr. Stowe does actually live on branch 4, so he is further to the east where 4th Avenue and Pine Street meet.
Okay, and I do want to say too, I don't want to overshadow, yes, the time that you've invested, saving dollars, not having to do with wetland credits, I don't want to overshadow that. That is the glass half full of all of this ongoing saga that has been 10-22-32. I don't think we've ever had a conversation on this ditch system that's lasted less than an hour, I'm pretty sure, in the history of the time I've been here. Regardless how big, how small, I don't think we ever have. But I mean, again, objectively, I do think it is the responsibility of this board to work with and work through the ongoing concerns that we get from property owners. And it's not like it's just like one little residential property owner. You're talking, tens and tens of acres of land that impede their ability to, earn revenue and, it's their way of life. So I just want to make sure that we're cognizant of that. I'm not going to even attempt to debate the merits of the reporting and all the things. That is not my strength. I think I've said this before, common sense seems to be my strength more so than the technical things, but I just want to ensure that we are addressing the needs and the concerns of the property owners through whatever it is we do, maintenance, whatever it is. So that's my 2 cents.
Any other comments? Roll call. Bradley, yes. Robertson.
Fine.
Wagaman.
Yes.
Waller.
Yes?
And when it's absent. Thank you. One more chapter of this long saga. Thank you for attending today. Thank you for your participation and your comments. So I believe let's take us now to the check register.
Mr. President, I would move the check register dated April 23rd, 2025, in the amount of $222,895.43, and the April interim financial statements prepared by Redpath and Company.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I think this takes us to Preby Lake. Tom? I'm sorry, Tom, but you're back up on Preby Lake. Okay,
President Bradley?
Yep.
Could we take a 5-minute recess maybe?
let's do that.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I could use a 5-minute too. Yeah, use that restroom.
President Bradley?
Yes, we're on. We're back. I believe we're up to item 1, Preby Lake Outlet Project Operations and Maintenance Agreement update. Is that correct?
That is correct. These are items for discussion and information, and Tom Schmidt will speak to the item.
Mr. President, thank you, Nick. When we repaired and replaced the Preby Lake outlet, forgive me, the year is escaping me. I was out 2022, 2021 timeframe. Part of the investigation of the outlet pipe from that outlet to Halls Marsh and Birchwood revealed that there was other contributors to that regional storm sewer, if you will, to the outlet. And to capture the responsibilities of all the parties that contribute water to it, the cities of Birchwood and Matamita asked for a operations and maintenance plan of the PLOP. It sounds terrible to say, but it's the Preby Lake Outlet Project outlet pipe. So we have developed that, and we submitted the draft to the partner cities in December of '24 and asked for comments. We received only one comment from one city, which was White Bear Lake. And while the comment was informative, detail-wise, it was not substantive. It was of a change, but we incorporated the comment into the draft and are now looking for giving you an informational before we resend it out to the parties for signature. So again, if you have questions, let me know.
All right, so this is informational again.
Yeah, I read it.
Long and short of it, as I understand it, each of the parties who contribute to the Preby Lake water input are parties to this agreement, and it resolves the mutual responsibilities of each of the parties, including ourselves. Does that summarize it?
Yes.
All right. Anyone have any questions about this document?
Mr. President, so Birchwood's going to ask about Halls Marsh. And they're going to, before the district had taken a position that there was kind of a no man's land in there between the outlet to the lake and the outlet into the marsh. And Birchwood wanted a clarity on how that was going to work out. You feel you would, Birchwood, you haven't submitted this to Birchwood yet, I reckon.
It has, Mr. President, Manager Waller, if I could, it has been submitted to Birchwood, and the language that addresses that remains unchanged from the original draft that Birchwood reviewed. And in there, this is in section 3, this could be found at page 105 of your packet. It talks about that Birchwood expects responsibility for vegetation or other habitat management activity within Halls Marsh related to the city's desired property use and management, and engaging Rice Creek Watershed District when the Preby Lake Outlet Project management may enhance the city's efforts. So in the original agreement, as they have reviewed it, and in the final language, that language remains. Basically, Birchwood takes responsibility for that, and then we agree to work with them to manage the function of the outlet project to facilitate their goals for Halls Marsh itself. If I've misstated that, Tom, please correct.
No, that's my understanding as well.
Here, the Halls Marsh is a public park for them. I understand it. It's left at that. So.
All right, any further questions? Hearing none, I guess you can proceed.
Yes, President Bradley, next item on the agenda is the Nonoka County Ditch 5362, branches 5 and 6, the Water Management District Charge Development Task Order. Again, Tom will address this with you.
Thank you, Nick. Mr. President, Board of Managers. Sorry there's so many things for me on it. yes, as Nick stated, part of the process of the repair report for 5362 branches 5 and 6 is the development of the charge for the water management district. And we have a task order for the administrator to sign. The amount is delegated to the administrator. It's just informative for you as the board in the process that this water management district will be levied again for this repair project per your historical split of charges to local and ad valorem dollars. In order to do that, we have to develop that charge based off land use and other criteria that our engineer used to develop it.
All right, anyone have any questions of Tom?
Nope.
As you indicated, this is, step 6, the ongoing saga, so thank you very much. Let's move on then to Anoka County Ditch 5362 branches 5 and 6 public information dates. That's item 3 on our agenda.
Yep. Tom will speak to this one again.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you, Nick. Board of Managers, staff are suggesting May 28th at 6 p.m. to hold a public information meeting on the repair report for branches 5 and 6 of 5362. We have checked with the city, and this chambers is available for that use. And looking for concurrence from you as the board to that date.
Mr. President, in the past, we always held these for the other branches in the Blaine City Hall years ago. And since this is 5 and 6 are in Blaine, it's generally been our practice to hold if we could, in the city of which it was. I realize the Blaine City Hall is not in the district, but nevertheless, we held them there in the past.
President Bradley, Manager Waller, yes, I guess staff was proceeding under the understanding that it couldn't be held in Blaine because it's outside of the district, but this is an informational item. So I suppose the statutory obligations of 103E, and we're going above and beyond. It wouldn't necessitate that it be within the district, but maybe Mr. Kolb has an opinion on that.
I agree with the administrator's interpretation. This is really not a meeting of the district. Managers are not required to attend. They're certainly welcome to attend. We can post it at that. For the convenience of the landowners, I think there is a little bit of tension between the open meeting law requirement that the meetings be held within the territorial boundaries of the district, and then the drainage code, which says you try to have these types of meetings in proximity to where the landowners that are affected are. So I think we could get by with the with both the public hearing actually and the informational meeting in Blaine if that is determined to be most convenient to the affected landowners.
See if you can make it so.
May we keep the 28th in this location as a backup date if we can't get something reasonably coordinated with Blaine?
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you.
That'd be what, at 6 p.m.?
Yeah.
All right, President Bradley will investigate the city of Blaine and the availability of space there. Otherwise, continue with the Mounds View location, date, and time.
Very good.
Next item would be the staff reports.
Anyone have any questions or comments on staff reports? We'll acknowledge Marcy's absence. And her ongoing efforts to get us to try to actually read these and treat them for the value that they give us. All right, then it takes us to the May calendar.
Correct. President Bradley, the May calendar, I'll just make note again of the 53 ACD, Anoka County Ditch 5362, Branch 5 and 6. The public information meeting isn't shown there, but it would be the May 28th date.
And I have the CAC meeting on the 7th, which I will attend.
Otherwise, we're moving up on Memorial Day already.
Okay. Is there any further business? Motion to adjourn.
Whoops.
Oh,
Administrator
Oh,
update.
yes.
Oh.
Sorry. How could I? Yes.
Tried.
I'd
seconded it.
No, I'm sure, no, we all have good things to say.
I'll be as quick as possible.
No.
Yeah,
We're going to, good time.
Thank you. President Bradley, Board of Managers. The district made a grant application on Hardwood Creek and JD2 as far as potential storage on the adjacent to the system. This would be a grant after you took did the resiliency study. Storing water in upstream locations is helpful to relieve tension in the system further down in other flooding locations. So we're looking for a response in May. Hopefully we'll be successful. Rice Creek is an MS4 no more. We received a letter from the Pollution Control Agency, a termination letter. Basically said, after review, the MS4 program has determined that Rice Creek Watershed District currently no longer meets the required minimum for being part of the MS4 program. So we will file our final reports with them and then proceed accordingly. We're noting a number of staff and in consultation with Rinky Noonan. We're noticing a number of policy items recently. And I've shared those accordingly, parliamentary procedure, the administrator review, and these types of things. We'll be looking at moving through the policy book, giving it a scrubbing, if you will, and looking for typos and corrections and updating those items and bringing them back to you. With that, also looking at public expenditure for the logoed clothing that we've done in the past. We last did that in 2022. Looking to move ahead with that with managers, staff, and the CAC as we did that in last time to promote the district and the team that we have here. Beyond that, the only other item was a lot of financial activity with fraud and such, and a lot of entities moving away from paper checks, as I'm sure you've experienced. We'll likely have to update our policies in regards to that as well. So that is all I have.
Very good. Manager Waller.
Thank you, Mr. President. I attended the Metro Mod Watershed chapter meeting on Tuesday, April 15th at 7 p.m. at the Capital Regions. And there was a extensive presentation made by the Department of Transportation about prioritization and coordinating projects overviews. And during part of that, I was absent from the room, so I didn't hear. I assume it was you, Mr. President.
It was me.
Emphasize the need for Rice Creek having help provided by the Department of Transportation on our I-35 project for flooding. And so when I re-emphasized that lady was a little upset that I was going over old material twice. But so be it. So anyways, the other things that went on there of significance were that the salt business is dead at the Capitol. It's going to go nowhere as far as the bill goes. They'll still try. And that the MPCA feels they're going to receive most of the federal grant money they have coming for some reason. I don't know, but they were very, very strong about that. So we had a presentation from the area chapter person of the League of Women Voters about how they were studying watershed districts in the metro area. And I just reminded that our own Mary Jo Trissant on our advisory committee for many years, president of the Anoka County Soil and Water Conservation District, has been an active woman and the League of Women's Voters. And so it'd be interesting to hear what they have to say about government and its effectiveness is what they were trying to get at. And with that, Mr. President, I have nothing else.
Okay. Andrew Wagaman.
I have nothing.
Andrew Robertson.
No, sir, nothing to share at this time, thank you.
Okay, only thing I have is that exactly what John said. The thing I found interesting at MnDOT is they were preparing a comprehensive map of all the areas that is flooded by the DOT and areas flooded onto the DOT, and I thought it'd be very helpful for us to get our project on that map, which is why I asked the question, and she kind of like went, ooh, Rice Creek? Yeah, I think I've talked to them. Nick's response was, yeah, I've talked to her 3 times. Her last name is. And so Nick knew a lot more about her than she seemed to know about us. I hope we get on their map because I think it would help us in our lobbying efforts. That's all I have. And I have the CAC coming up. So thank you, everybody. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
In favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you.